Hello, this is Elucent, and welcome to the developer mod spotlight of my new Magic mod for 1.16. It's been a while, hasn't it? By my count, it's been about 4 years since I last released a Magic mod with any sizable amount of content. Um, and that hasn't really been for lack of trying. If you've been following me on Reddit for a while, or seen other posts in various Discords, you'll note that there have actually been quite a few projects I've tried over the years to follow up Roots and Embers with. And while many of them have had interesting themes and ideas and pretty particle effects, none of them have really quite lived up to my expectations. They would have an interesting mechanic or two, but they just wouldn't end up being fun or very useful. And so most of those ended up getting shelved. However, this fall, I had a sudden burst of inspiration, or maybe just procrastination, and decided to take some time in parallel with my last couple semesters of college to take another stab at making a magic mod. And the result is, well, what I'm about to show you. This is a magic mod called Eidolon. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to be releasing for 1.16 just about as this video is uploaded. So if you're catching this on the early side, well, definitely check CurseForge and see if the file's up yet. Eidolon is, I guess I would sort of broadly classify as a dark magic mod. It's a little hard to give it a particular theme. I'd say there's elements of necromancy, elements of alchemy, elements of theurgy. There's really a bunch of different stuff. And throughout the whole mod, there's a bunch of, everything that you'd sort of expect from a magic mod. Thematic crafting mechanisms and stuff you can do, lots of pretty particle effects, and also a bunch of really cool, powerful magic items that you can use in your world. So, yeah. Idolon has quite a bit of content, even though it's quite early in development, and I hope that you enjoy it as you play in 1.16. With that sort of lengthy intro aside, let's get into what we actually want to do if we want to start Eidolon. You might notice in my hand I'm holding this book. This book is called the Ars Ecclesia. You can craft it like this. Just a book and a rotten flesh. So it's fairly inexpensive. If we crack it open, you can see that sort of it's got a Thumbonomicon type aesthetic to it. We've got these chapters on the side, and each one of these chapters, and I'll go over each one of these in this video or future videos, we've got a chapter title and some different contents. And for each one of these little sub-chapters, we can click on the name and go to a page and read about what's described there. So it's a fairly standard guidebook. There's not really too much else to talk about with it. Just that you essentially want to craft this as soon as possible because it'll tell you how to do everything there is to do in the mod. Speaking of things to do in the mod, let's talk about, I guess let's start with this category, natural phenomena. This video will mostly be covering this chapter, which covers all of the different things Idolon will add to your world that you might just come across in normal gameplay, even if you're not trying to progress. This video will talk about that, and also a little bit of getting started in the mod. I've tried recording this video a couple times, and it has ended up being over an hour long, and I don't want to make myself do that all in one take, so this video is mostly just going to be an introduction to the mod. I'll be releasing some videos concurrently with this that talk about some of the later mechanics and other things you can do with the mod, so keep an eye out for those. My hope is that this makes it easier on me because I don't have to record everything all at once. And also, hopefully, it makes it a little bit easier for you because you can zero in on, whatever you have questions about and watch only the specific video for that. Of course, if you're looking for just a general overview of the mod, you can watch all of them, and they should, work pretty well for that. Okay, so our first topic, as I mentioned, is going to be natural phenomena, and let's get started by talking about some monsters. Eidolon adds 2 monsters to your world, the Zombie Brute and the Wraith. Both of these are undead, and they'll spawn at night along with other hostile mobs that you would normally find. Let me go into this cave so I can spawn them and they don't immediately catch fire. Alright. The first one, the zombie brute, is pretty basic. They're essentially just bigger, faster, stronger zombies. As you can see, they're pretty buff, they're pretty tall, they have twice the health of a normal zombie, a little bit more armor, and they move a bit faster too. Other than that, though, they don't really have any interesting AI. Let me see if I can kill this one and get the special drop. No such luck, but as you can see, they drop rotten flesh. They also drop bones sometimes. And occasionally, with about a 10% drop chance, they'll drop this thing called a zombie heart. This is used for some other stuff. But we'll get into that later. The next mob that you might run into is the Wraith, and this one I actually am a big fan of. I'm very, very happy with how this guy turned out. As you can see, normally they're just kind of these, ghosty skeleton dudes who hover around. They are actually hovering, and so they'll follow you like a normal mob, but they actually can hover over liquids like water or lava. What's more interesting about them, though, is if I go into survival, and I let this Wraith hit me, you can see he's doing a decent amount of damage, but in addition to hurting me, my hearts have also turned kind of blue and icy, and you'll notice I've got this effect called Chilled. I'd also like to draw your attention to my hunger bar, because it's gone down by 1.5 shanks, and I haven't recovered any health. This is the special ability of the Wraiths. When a Wraith hits you, your very soul becomes cold and chilly, and any healing that you receive, be it from natural regeneration or a potion or even some other mod mechanic, basically anytime something heals you, it won't work. All healing gets nullified. And so this means that Wraiths can actually be kind of a fearsome opponent, especially if your approach to equipment is that you get a lot of regeneration and boost your health and stuff like that. Wraiths can really limit your ability to recover in the middle of a fight, and so definitely don't take them for granted. On the other hand, it is possible, using some of the Wraith drops, to get this power for yourself. Some of the items you can get later in the mod can allow you to apply Chilled to different targets. And so, hopefully, if you get far enough in this mod, you can turn this dangerous adversary into really just another powerful weapon in your arsenal. So yeah, that's the Chilled effect. Kind of interesting. You don't want to have it, but it might be useful if you try to toss it on some other stuff. Alright, so that's the monsters. The next up is ores. And to do this, I'm going to go into spectator mode and give myself night vision, just so we can see, how frequently these guys spawn. So if I fly down into the world, you can see if I go low enough, there's actually quite a bit here. There's this new ore that appears. This ore is lead ore, and it behaves basically the same as any other lead ore from any other mod. We can smelt it into lead ingots, which can be used to make nuggets and blocks. If you have other mods installed, you should also be able to pulverize it and get dusts and things. It's really just ordinary lead ore, but you'll need a little bit of it to get further in Eidolon. It spawns lower in the world than iron, a little bit higher than gold, and also a little bit more commonly than gold. Although this might be a little bit unusually common for it. Yeah, lead ore. That's fairly straightforward, but while we're here, let me show you this other thing Eidolon adds, which is this new dungeon. This is a dungeon I've been calling the Abandoned Lab. Let me go to creative mode. There we go. This one didn't spawn connected to a cave, but they're large enough that they often do. And if we descend down into it, you can see that we've got this main room, the zombie spawner, and some various paraphernalia from Eidolon itself. I'm not going to go into all of these. I'll cover this thing in the next video. But if you come across one of these in your world, definitely check it out. These chests in the corners here have normal dungeon loot, which is, never hurts to have. And this chest over here has Eidolon loot. So you can see we've got some pretty powerful enchanted books, some soul shards, which I'll talk about in the next video as well, and a basic amulet, which can be used as sort of a base ingredient for a lot of magical items. So definitely check these out if you can. They're pretty handy. Definitely nice to visit when you get the chance. These structures are definitely not required to complete the mod. They're just kind of there for flavor and style. So you can feel free to disable them. And if you're in a world where they weren't generated and you're worried about having to go into new chunks, don't worry too much. They're not really that crucial. But definitely keep a lookout for any special structures. All right. So that's lead ore, that's some structures. That actually covers everything that Eidolon adds to the world in terms of generation. But let's talk about a couple things you can do with existing mechanics before we progress. The first thing is pewter. Pewter blend can be crafted with lead ingots and iron ingots in a 1-to-1 mix, and smelted in a furnace or blast furnace to produce pewter ingots. Most of the time that you're going to be using lead, you're actually going to be using pewter. And as you can see, it's got quite a few uses in crafting various blocks in the mod and a couple different magical items. So this is a pretty useful material. You definitely want to get a good amount of it. You don't need too much lead to make a large amount of pewter, considering it's only 50% lead, but you'll definitely want some before you start progressing in Eidolon. The other material that you might find interesting is this thing called enchanted ash. It can be crafted quite simply by smelting or blasting a bone, and you get 2 enchanted ash per, so it's fairly inexpensive. Let me actually grab it for real. And normally it's not terribly interesting. You can use it as an ingredient in a couple different recipes, and again, I'll talk about most of these later on. But on its own, it actually has an interesting ability, which is that if you put it down, it creates a barrier that undead mobs can't cross. So we've got this wraith in here, and we've got this line of enchanted ash. If we try to, like, punch the wraith over it, you can see even if we're hitting the wraith, they can't cross the ash. It behaves basically like a fence to them. And so they can't jump over it, they can't walk past it. It blocks them almost completely, unless they have some means of jumping over it. So definitely pretty handy to have. That's all there is basically to that, though. All right. That actually covers everything in the natural phenomena category. So, you'll run into these monsters and ores, but there's nothing too much to them. In order to progress in the mod, we'll need to start using them for different things. Most of these uses I'll be covering in the next video, but I wanted to talk about one of the earliest things you can do in this mod, just to wrap this video up. And that's getting started in this thing called theurgy. Theurgy is the process of using deities or higher powers for magic. And there's a fair bit of it in this mod. It doesn't have the most uses yet, although I plan on expanding that in future releases. But it is still pretty useful, and some of the most important items in the mod can only be acquired with some progress in theurgy. And for some reasons I'll explain later, you definitely want to start this as early as possible. Luckily, it's not too hard. All you really need is a wooden altar, which is crafted like so, out of any wooden planks and slabs you want, and a straw effigy, which is just this little T pattern of wheat. So both of these are quite inexpensive. We can put them down in the world, and as you can see, the altar blocks will connect pleasantly to each other. And we can put the effigy on top, and bam, we have an altar for theurgical purposes. But something's missing. We've got this effigy, we've got this altar, but what do we do with it? It's just kind of sitting here. There's not really much we can do to interact with it at the moment. I'm trying to right-click and nothing's really happening. And there's not really very many special properties to either of these things on their own. If we want to use them for stuff, we're going to need something called a sign. Signs are these magical symbols that you can find in various ways. Most of them are given to you by deities as you progress. And they basically represent different kinds of magic. And you'll need knowledge of signs to cast certain spells, commune with deities, and just overall become a more powerful magician. Unfortunately, if we go to our signs tab, we don't have anything. We've got 5 empty spaces for 5 signs that we are currently in the dark about. And it's a little bit vague as to how we actually get our first one. If we read the book, you can see that while the majority of signs are known only to higher powers, it does mention that some basic ones, aka the ones we'll want to start with, may be known to magical practitioners. So what does this mean? Well, essentially, there's only so many mobs that actually do magic in vanilla Minecraft. The one that we're looking for is the witch. As soon as you find a witch, and witches actually behave quite similarly to normal, so they will still attack you, they will still fight you, definitely be careful. But if you're being attacked by a witch, consider taking your, Ars Ecclesia here and tossing it down on the ground. They'll feel compelled to pick it up and scribble down some notes to help you get started in dark magic. Pick up the book, and we've unlocked our first sign, which actually appears in our Signs tab. Bam. We've got the Wicked sign. It looks like this, all spooky and cool. In addition to learning that sign, or after we've learned it, you'll notice that we've got a new entry here, the Dark Prayer. With a chant of 3 wicked signs before an altar, we can pray to the Dark Lord and attempt to get some of their favor. So let's try that out. We have the dark sign. All we need to do is to make a chant out of it. And that's actually pretty easy to do. In this interface, all we need to do is select the signs that we know, in this case the Wicked sign, and build up a chant by clicking on it. We've built up our chant, and we can choose to either chant it or cancel. In this case, this seems to be correct for the Dark Prayer. So we can chant it. And with thunder in the background, the effigy's eyes light up with purple fire, and we have made our first progress in theurgy. So that's essentially how you get started with this, and you can do this as many times as you want, with one major caveat. Unfortunately, if I go to survival, in creative this doesn't apply, but I'm assuming if you're playing modded Minecraft, you're probably going to be playing mostly survival. If we try to do this again so soon, it doesn't work. Nothing happens, no thunder, no eyes lighting up. We just get a hiss of smoke in the background. This indicates that our prayer actually failed. And you'll notice it actually talks about this in the book. The major limitation of prayers and anything else you do to gain favor with a deity is that you can only do one of them per day. So this is why it's important to start early. As soon as you possibly can, build up your altar, find a witch, get some stuff, and try to start making dark prayers. Because while it doesn't take too many of them to start making some progress, you are severely limited in the rate at which you can do these. And later, as you find ways to upgrade your altar and find new ways to offer things to the Dark Lord, try to use the best one available to you whenever possible. Because, again, it'll only make things faster, and that's usually good. Alright, that's actually everything I was going to talk about in this video. I know that's not too much, and we haven't gotten into anything super useful, but this is sort of the things that you would want to either look at or look into on your first night of the game. Tune in for probably the next 2 videos. I think there's going to be 2 more or so, maybe 3, to see how some of the other mechanics in the mod work. I'll talk about rituals, I'll talk about crafting recipes, I'll talk about how we can get further in theurgy, and at the very end I'm going to talk about some cool items in the mod. But for now, I've been Elucent, and this is how to get started in Eidolon. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really hope you enjoy the mod. See ya!